Welcome to the Millennial Rant, a podcast about whatever's bothering me today. With topics ranging from politics to pop culture, there's a rant to cover everyone. For more Millennial Rant content, you can join me on the web at millennialrant.com.
Today on the Millennial Rant, I am offering unsolicited advice. Yay! So here it is. Marry young. And I realize that might seem hypocritical from an old maid such as myself, but because I've reached this point in my life without having ever said I do at an altar, I feel like I have a certain view of things that is worth considering, especially if, eventually you want to get married and have children at some point in your life. So here are my thoughts. I obviously have never been married. It'd be a lie to say I was close a couple times. It was a possibility a few times when I was younger. And here's one of the things that I definitely notice about myself now versus me 10, 15 years ago. I was much more willing to compromise and learn and grow 15 years ago than I am right now. I am extremely set in my routines, in my experiences, in the things that I want to do with my future and my life as it is right now, that it feels very difficult to invite someone into my life as it is and be able to be equally yoked partners. This idea that we have the same hopes and dreams and we want to build a family together. I still want that, for sure. I still want that. But I think that at 36, it's going to be a lot harder than it was at 26 or 18. And so that's one reason why I don't feel that I'm as flexible anymore. And another reason is that when you marry young, you have the opportunity to, like I said, grow together. When you're in your 30s, you don't want to struggle. You don't want to, figure things out. You just want to have things figured out. And whether that's because you personally have things figured out already and you don't want a partner, quote, dragging you down, or I don't know, whatever your personal circumstances are, at least for me, I feel like I did my struggling when I was in my 20s. I don't want to have to go through that again. And there are different types of struggles, obviously. And there are going to be struggles no matter when you get married at any age. But the whole, I'm trying to figure out who I am and where I'm going and get my life together kind of struggles. We live in a studio apartment, just the two of us, and the faucet leaks and the toilet overflows every time we flush it. I would really rather avoid that because, I've been there, done that. I lived in that, admittedly on my own, and I had to figure it out on my own. I had to struggle on my own to get to a point where I could live in a place that was not a studio with a leaky faucet and an overflowing toilet. And I don't want to go back to that. If I were to get married, I would want to be able to move into a place that is stable, a place where I feel like I could have a family right away. Because again, late 30s, definitely not getting any younger here. So there's that too. All right, if I'm going to talk pros, I should also talk cons, right? You're much more likely to rush into something when you're young, because you're not fully developed emotionally yet. If you're under the age of 25, like the front and the back half of your brains aren't even fully connected. And so you're going to make foolish decisions, right? And that could include marrying somebody that you shouldn't have married. Here's where, families come in, right? And not everybody is fortunate to have a family that they can rely on. Parents who will tell them, hey, this guy you're dating is kind of a loser. Or, maybe this girl you're dating isn't quite, going in the right direction. And then you have people who don't care. They're like, I'm just gonna hitch my wagon to this ride or die And that's majorly mixing metaphors, but you get what I'm saying. And it's, us against the world. That's great until you realize that the world has a lot of influence over the us that you didn't realize that it had. And so you have to go into it with your eyes wide open to know that things are not going to be easy, and that love comes and goes. Love's a choice, and you have to wake up every morning choosing to love that person, choosing to be committed to that person, choosing to continue to build your life with that person. And that's a lot to ask from somebody who is young. But, it's a lot to ask from people who are older too. Part of the problem that we're seeing in our culture for, a lot of these divorce rates, a lot of these failed marriages in a lot of cases has to do with the devaluing of married culture overall. There's this idea that, we'll live together before we get married, and, as kind of like a training wheels test drive of the car, I guess. And there are actual studies that show that cohabitation actually has a negative effect on marriages. People who cohabitate before marriage are more likely to get divorced later. And a lot of that probably has to do with like a cognitive dissonance sort of thing, where when you cohabitate, there's this back door, right? There's always the option of just leaving. And when you get married, you carry that into it with you. And it doesn't help that divorce is so easy now that in a lot of, well, I don't want to say a lot of states, but at least in a few states, it's easier to get divorced than it is even to get married. So there's that. And but even still, you go into marriage like you go into a cohabitation. This is my money, and this is your money, and these are your chores, and these are my chores, and this is what I pay for, and this is what you pay for, and this is my dog, and that's your cat. And, you keep everything separate, as if at any moment one of you is just going to split. And it's become really psychologically damaging when it comes to marriage and what marriage actually is. There is no yours or mine in marriage. It's ours. It's our money. It's our car. It's our house. They're our kids. And you have to get into that mindset of everything that you guys are doing, you have to do together. And that includes jobs, whether you're going to keep a job or leave a job or take a job, or you're going to go to school to get more education, or you're going to completely change your career path. These are all things that you have to talk about and work through together. And if you marry young, when a lot of these decisions are still being made, you have the opportunity to be able to make those decisions together, to build your life together. Whereas when you're older, almost all of those decisions have been made already. And if you're lucky, you're flexible enough to be able to transition from, one different aspect of life to another. But if you're like me, you're so set on the path that you're on that you may not necessarily be able to compromise. And, marriage it's all about compromise and communication and connection and compassion. And you have to be able to feel those things for your partner, even when you don't want to. And again, it's a lot harder when you're older to be able to recognize the needs that somebody else has, to be able to make those changes that are necessary to grow as individuals, but also together. And one of the really great things about marrying young is that you have the chance to grow together so that you can grow independently within the family unit. And there are a lot of people that I know, they married young, they had children young, and there came a time in their lives where I don't know as they necessarily regretted it, but there was definitely a point of realization where it was this almost apocalyptic sense of, oh my gosh, what have I done? I'm now tied to this. This is me forever and ever and ever and ever. And yeah, you're going to have to come to grips with that. And again, a large reason for that is because culturally marriage has been devalued. You have, all of your 20-something friends who are out there having the time of their lives, and you're stuck at home. And so it becomes this almost death sentence, right? But when you get past that, when you get to the other side of it, and there are a lot of people who don't. There are people who get stuck there and they think this was a mistake and the only way to rectify it is to erase the mistake. And so they get a divorce, or they leave their kids, or they have an affair, or whatever. It happens, and it is extremely unfortunate. And so, again, you have to be willing to compromise. You have to be willing to understand that the life that you chose is the life that you chose. And you have to live with the consequences of the choice that you made. And that includes the choice that you make when you're in that slump and you think, what have I done? Are you going to choose to stay and work through the tough times so that you can, come out the other side better? Or are you going to quit and walk away and spend the rest of your life quitting and walking away? Because once you walk away from something that big, walking away from things that are smaller is so much easier. So that's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. If I could go back and do it again, I would like to have married young. I would like to have children already. If I had kids at 20 like I planned, I'd have a 15-year-old right now. But, life doesn't always go the way we plan. Don't hitch yourself to one idea of what your life is going to be like. But if the opportunity comes to you, you have the chance to choose it. It's gonna be hard. It might be the harder path overall. But I think in the end, it'll be worth it.